everyone, I am back for number 2. I'm one day late because life has been doing things with me lately. So it's pretty exciting. Opportunities seem to be opening up the more that I share and the more that I put myself out there. It seems like just the more that I'm feeling not so secluded and isolated and alone. So that is a plus, right? But it did make me a day late. My internet was not working well. There was a solar flare. The northern lights were just crazy beautiful last night. So that was pretty amazing. So I just wanted to start off, just in case you guys wanted to kind of know where I'm going with all of this, as I'm sharing about my story, about how I got to where I am and how I got so many tools along the way, even growing up. Like, I was gearing up for the day that I was going to be Silas's mom. And now I want to share these things with everybody else because I think that will help people, that are lost. Like, my husband grew up he has one sister, and his parents have been together for a really long time, but he hasn't been around people like my son that often, or our son I should say. And so a lot of things that he does and stuff, my husband is an introvert, and all the things that he does has made it where, it's made it harder for Tommy to be in public. And that has been a struggle for our relationship, for us. It has definitely not been easy because he struggled before. And then when you have a kid that does things that, you worry about someone filming you or someone calling the police because they think that, maybe, I don't know, we're trying to kidnap him or something, because sometimes, it was hard to get him from one situation to the next and he'd be kicking and screaming. Just things that really would make someone else probably have high anxiety in the situation, the way that he acts sometimes. He's gotten a lot better as he's gotten older, I think, but obviously I don't take him out as much because of, with him, once he had epilepsy, the flu, just the normal flu, would make him spiral. It was one of the triggers for him to have a seizure. And then, so for a while, there was no way to stop his seizures, and they just kind of were going out of control. And so we kind of learned over time that we had to kind of seclude him, not really seclude, but less is more for us. So he wasn't having 3 to 6 seizures a month. And so then when COVID hit, oh gosh, you guys, that was awful. Because I already had picked and choose when I went to town and all this great stuff. And then COVID was a respiratory, and my son, that's what he stops doing, is breathing. So that was a huge fear for me and my husband, because, like I said, we were already being very, very safe. And then when COVID happened, it was just we were being it went to an extreme because we didn't really understand. Obviously we know our son's triggers now, which took a while. We know what we can do to help him, but it took a long time to get all that, because the stuff that they give for seizure medications actually stop him from breathing. And I had an instance where they gave me this stuff. I think it's called diazepam, something like that. And when he's having a seizure, you administrate it through their butts. And I had never given it to him before, and they gave me some of it. And of course, when he had a seizure, because we live 16 miles outside of town, and so I gave it to him, and I didn't know, but he is allergic to it, which later on we found out, and it stops him from breathing. That was scary. We called an ambulance, which eventually we realized that was not a good choice for where we live, because the ambulance tacked on another 30 to 40 minutes onto our time of waiting around for an ambulance. And so I learned by the respiratory therapist, by people that were willing to train me, how to use the bag, how to use oxygen, how to use the suction, how to use everything. And so then now we take him in. I have a car that I call the ambulance, and it's all set up where he can be laid out, which is great because he's now 13 and he's super tall. When he was like 6, when this all started, he was easy to pick up and carry, and now it's like a whole ordeal. I don't even know if I could carry him. He's like way bigger than me. I'd be more like probably dragging him. So that's pretty scary for me, you know, living here, and with my husband being a fisherman. He was gone for a few months out of the year, which luckily during those times, it doesn't seem like he seizes. So that is a good thing, but I do love to have always someone out here with me, just in case he was to have a seizure, especially with him being so big now, because it would be hard to get him to point A to point B. But back to him being allergic. So they figured out, the reason I'm jumping into the seizure bit is because I felt like I need to talk about this, because there's so many layers to our journey. But the seizure thing was huge because it was so scary and I didn't know what was going on. So we went probably about, I don't know, a good few months, probably 4 to 6 months of him just spiraling out of control with his seizures, and the medicine they were giving were stopping him from breathing, so then we'd automatically get life flighted every single time. Well, the same respiratory therapist that taught me how to bag and do all that great stuff, they came up with some idea, and one of the doctors, they came up with some idea to give him the Michael Jackson cocktail, which is propofol. And I don't know if I'm saying all this right because I am not a medical person. I do know what I'm talking about, but my pronunciation of things are not great. And so they give him propofol, and then that lets his body rest enough to stop the seizure. And then she breathes for him, and then they bring him to. And sometimes they have to give it to him 2 times, but most of the times it's only 1 time and no life flight. But there is no more Ativan. There's no more of that because that's a complete bad thing for him. And so that was a whole ordeal because we were getting life flighted. I don't even know, like so many times a month, it was just out of control. And that was a way to just get the seizures stopped, just to completely get them stopped. But about 6 months into, he was given Levotrim, and I can post into what the names are. I can list them. But Levotrim, and then he was on oxycarbazepine. Oh my gosh, Lisa. And that was not working. So he had I think it was 5 mil and 2 mil or something like that. But the Levotrim was making him a little bit agitated. And so we switched it to the oxycarbazepine, 5 mil, and then the Levotrim, like 2 mil. And now he's up to 7.5 because obviously he's bigger and stuff. But that was when he was smaller. But that still did not stop his seizures. And then someone suggested some hemp CBD. And so I went and I got some hemp CBD, and I actually talked to his doctor first, and he said 1 in 3 of people with epilepsy, it helps. And so I said, well, do you think Silas could be 1 in 3? And he said, well, I'm willing to try. And I said, okay, let's do this. So I didn't know anything about it. So I got the hemp THC, or the hemp CBD. And I took him to Seattle eventually, and they tested him for CBD in his blood because I didn't know if I was giving him the proper amount because it wasn't helping. And it would either I wasn't giving him enough, or he was just not one of the 1 in 3. And anyways, I went back to the doctor and they tested his blood and said he had no CBD. So this really expensive stuff that I was paying for absolutely had no CBD in it, or at least he didn't test for it. So then I went to the doctor and I was really upset because, I'd spent really good money and I had them on it for a while, and it was just a waste of my time, truly. And then the doctor told me it has to be THC CBD. And I didn't know that, more like CBD THC, because it has a lot of CBD, a little THC. But I didn't know that. And so as soon as I put him on that regimen, he stopped having seizures 3 to 6 times a month and went to having them to 3 to 4 times a year. So my little boy was like going out of control, and it went from that to that. And that was amazing. Like, I mean, I was just completely, like, it was just a godsend, really. And I had been praying that he wouldn't be life flighted anymore because the tubes being stuck down his throat, and it was just a lot, you know, a lot on our family. And so he was 1 and 3, you guys, the 1 and 3. And the cool thing about it is that, you know, I eventually had to talk to the school and stuff to let him know that, you know, I was using some alternative medicine. And it was so funny because they noticed that he was actually more able to focus. He wasn't as frustrated. And so it was helping in other aspects of his life. A long time ago, I had asked if, you know, because somebody had said that maybe, you know, my son needs medication. And I asked before seizures, you know, maybe THC, CBD or something like that would help, you know, the cannabinoids. We all have cannabinoids in our brain or receptors in our brain. And I was thinking, well, maybe that would help him, you know, calm down or whatever. And I was shut down, but they were willing to give him Adderall and all this other stuff that they had, you know, whatever, asked to, what they give kids like this, I guess I should say. And I just wasn't willing to do that. But I did ask if they'd try, you know, the CBD, and they shut me down. So then fast forward, you know, that was when someone was trying to suggest medication for my child. But I don't know, I'm into alternative medicine if I can. And I know that I have heard a lot of amazing things about CBD. And I feel like I was going to go I was actually going to talk about other things. And I decided that I felt like I needed to talk about this because it seriously changed my son. The way he was going, the doctors told us that we would be lucky if he stays alive until he's 18 years old. And that was when he was having 3 to 6 seizures a month. We changed his diet. We healed his gut. We went on a 12-month diet of just eating clean food, meats, vegetables, and fruits. That's it. No GMO, no all organic, because we don't want any of the chemicals. We were trying to heal his gut. He used to have diarrhea all the time, and after we went on that year of eating well and everything, his gut was completely healed. And ever since then, we've just brought back a little bit of food at a time, and he is fine now. And the first like 7 years of his life was not like that. So there are ways to use alternative. We use oils. I love DDR. I love frankincense. Like, there are some oils that I use for Silas in particular. That's why I started even learning about oils. And then just recently, with my brother being diagnosed with cancer, I started actually looking into more oils now, because when I was camping one time, this lady told me that she was fighting cancer with oils. And I was like, oils? So when I found out about the epilepsy, you know, going down that, I looked in oils and epilepsy. And now I can't believe how amazing plant medicine is, that I am just like trying to find as many alternatives as I can in life. And when I can find them, I want to share, because I have seen with my own eyes, by changing my son's diet, taking bad stuff out. And I actually left out a huge part of his story, is the first time that he ever had a seizure. Like, I knew it was hot dogs. Like, I just knew it was. And my family and everyone laughed at me. They thought that I was probably a lunatic. And anyways, we went out camping one time, and I needed to go into town. And so I went into town, and I left my son Silas with my family, and he ate hot dogs. When I got back, I was so mad, because that was my ¡1 rule, is don't let him eat hot dogs, because I think they're causing him seizures. And of course, at 3 o'clock in the morning, because that is the time of Silas getting up, is 3 a.m. I don't know why. Actually, I do think I know why, but 3 a.m. is the time. He was seizing and foaming at the mouth. And that's why I realized that food was a big, huge thing, because in my heart, I knew that was what was setting his seizures off, was food, like what was in our food. And so that's what took me down to healing his gut. And I just didn't know anything. And there's so many more layers to this story of maybe why his gut isn't right, you know, so, which I will get into more of that later. But for right now, I just want to talk about healing the gut, because I feel like that was like a big, huge part. CBD, THC, huge, huge lifesaver for my son. I haven't heard any doctors tell me that he's not going to make it until he's 18. So that is a huge, you know, weight lift. So yeah, I think that's probably pretty much where I want to leave off today. Today. It's actually this evening, but that's why I was like, oh, wrong time of day. It's sunshiny still out, right? But it's evening here. But anyways, yeah, I just want to leave off with that. There's been some people that I know deal with seizures, and I just want to share what we've done to help Silas. And like I said, it's the healing of the gut and all that's going to work for everybody, because your gut and your brain are completely connected. So it's definitely changed Silas. Like, he would stim all the time and he was just a hot mess. And without medication, just by changing his diet, he was good, you know? So it has been a journey, and it has been a learning experience. And I do want to talk about my husband too, during this, because of him being an introvert. And it's been really hard for him. Sometimes he says, Lisa, don't you ever get embarrassed? And I don't know if it's that I don't get embarrassed. It's just that I've been around people that are different all of my life, that it's not something that I get banished an eyelash at or something. I don't know. I'm more compassionate over people that are different than I am like embarrassed of anybody that's different. I want to go up and I want to help them, or I want to talk to them. I want to embrace them. And you know, when you're an introvert like my husband, I don't feel that you feel the same way, because, you know, you have your own insecurities and your own issues of going out, and then, you know, then you have a kid that draws all this attention to you, which is just fabulous, right? Especially if you're not trying to draw attention to yourself, right? And I've always, my mom being sick, it's just always been that way. So I'm used to it, but I'm here to let everyone know that we can do this. Like, we've got this. I've got this. Like, I've been doing it now for 13 years with my son. And I remember before he stopped talking at 18 months. And I remember before then, and it seemed hard, but it seemed easy because I was a new mom, you know? It seemed hard at the time, but with what I have now, it seemed easy. Like, as it got, you know, after 18 months, it got really hard, and I didn't even know what hard was. So, and things do get different. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. So much love to everyone, and thank you for listening, and mwah, I will talk to y'all later.